After passing a series of exhaustive proof tests, the SpaceX Starship prototype, which might be the first to launch into space, has been brought back to the company's Starbase rocket factory. Want to know more about it? Then stay tuned. Welcome to Techmo. Today's video is about SpaceX Starship that returns to its factory after simulated Raptor testing. But before we make it to the video, make sure you subscribe to our channel for more premium content and hit the notification bell to be the first to watch our videos. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, recently granted environmental approval for orbital launches from the company's site in South Texas, allowing SpaceX to overcome another obstacle in its path to launching the Starship, the most powerful rocket in the world. After months of deliberation and delay, a decision was made on June 13th that called for a number of actions to lessen the impact on the public beaches and wildlife near SpaceX's private spaceport at Boca Chica Beach, located 20 miles east of Brownsville, Texas. Elon Musk's space company still benefits from the decision, as it could have been required to finish a much longer and more in-depth environmental impact statement prior to any orbital launches. The future of the rocket complex in Boca Chica Beach is less certain than it may seem, despite the conditional approval for SpaceX, which still requires a launch license for orbital flights. State and regional officials who view the expanding Starbase facility as an opportunity for economic development, environmentalists worried about the effects on delicate ecosystems, locals whose community has been transformed, and supporters of SpaceX with lofty aspirations of colonizing Mars have all been at odds with one another. Musk has stated that SpaceX intends to eventually relocate Starship operations to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where the company is currently building a new launch tower and already has all the permits necessary for orbital launches. This move will take place while the discussion is still ongoing. The South Texas location will probably continue to serve as a center for research and development, but as Starship begins to function, a robust test program at Boca Chica Beach won't be as necessary. Although SpaceX may have prevailed in the fight to launch Starship test flights from Starbase, Texas may have forfeited its right to future illustrious flights to Mars. The company would have to abide by 75 new rules in order to operate orbital Starship flights out of Texas, which would require launching a larger rocket than the Saturn V that carried astronauts to the moon. Before SpaceX receives the final FAA license to launch its mega rocket, these restrictions include restrictions on road closures and the creation of wildlife corridors, as well as other less common requirements like creating a historical context report of the Mexican War. The document only covers 10 launches annually, 5 suborbital and 5 orbital, a cap that the business might easily hit once Starship takes to the skies. Environmental groups' legal actions, including one suit that has been filed and at least one more that has been threatened, are increasing the pressure in Texas. Musk's remarks came as a welcome confirmation that SpaceX ultimately planned to move Starship operations to the Atlantic coast of the Sunshine State, according to Dale Ketchum, Vice President of Governmental Relations at Space Florida, the state's aerospace development agency. As Florida watched Starbase expand, there may have been some trepidation on their part, admits Ketchum, but we were always told that the flight operations would take place in Florida and the testing would take place in Texas. Nevertheless, since the site's inception, there has been talk about Boca Chica Beach serving as a gateway to Mars. Musk promoted the spaceport as a location where history would be made at the ribbon-cutting ceremony in 2014. Politicians argued over the merits of the launch complex throughout 2021. Lawyers argued over rules, and environmentalists voiced worries about the potential effects of the massive rocket factory and expanding launch site on wildlife. SpaceX persistently built a complex launch pad at Boca Chica, complete with a 480-foot-tall launch tower. Due to the 2 robust robotic arms that the company plans to use to catch the enormous boosters, as they land on the same launch pad, Musk has given the tower the moniker Mechazilla. He tweeted, "Ready to refly in under an hour." When NASA gave SpaceX $2.89 billion in April 2021 to create a variant of Starship to use as a lunar landing vehicle during the first crewed return to the moon as part of the Artemis program, something changed. The astronauts will be transported to lunar orbit by NASA's Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft, where they will board a waiting Starship spacecraft that will take them to the surface. Starship operations were moved to Kennedy Space Center, which has housed NASA's human spaceflight operations since they began, as a result of their involvement in the moonshot. During Boca Chica Beach's FAA certification, work there has been increased. Another Mechazilla launch tower's first 3 legs have been raised, and the remaining 3 are waiting to be attached. Similar to the ones in Texas where starships are constructed, tents have appeared. The groundwork for a sizable permanent star factory to even produce more rockets has also been laid, just like in South Texas. Musk has always intended to build the Starbase launch facility in Florida, but when SpaceX sets a deadline, rumors spread quickly. According to Ketchum, they started work on Pad 39 3 years ago, but it really started accelerating in the last 9 months. Outside of Musk's statements, SpaceX has not offered any additional commentary on the future of Starship operations. The business declined a request for comment for this article, and SpaceX's sole official response to the FAA's most recent ruling was a tweet that read, "One step closer to orbital launch." However, the new building in Florida says a lot. The patient of SpaceX is not well known. Musk expressed concern that the FAA delays might cause the first orbital flight of Starship to take place outside of Texas during the public event in February. In reference to Kennedy Space Center, Musk said to the crowd, "We do have the alternative of the Cape. We did in fact request and receive environmental approval for launching from the Cape a few years ago. The site would be prepared for an orbital launch by fall of 2022. He added, "As with most of Musk's predictions, that might be overly optimistic. The only launch facility for SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule, the only spacecraft currently capable of transporting astronauts to the International Space Station, is located at Kennedy Space Center. Because of this, the launch pad is a national asset and should not be used for test flights." Given the explosive outcomes of other early SpaceX tests, the idea of testing a large booster on that same launch pad is giving NASA and Space Force officials some pause. The challenges SpaceX faces at Boca Chica Beach are growing as Florida establishes itself as a new Starship hub. Not everyone is happy about the area being demoted to being the preferred site of fiery crashes. Negative comments from federal agencies, such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, were also included in the FAA's environmental assessment. According to documents obtained by CNBC, the FWS discovered a decline in endangered piping plovers near Starbase and warned that the spaceport's expansion might harm other shorebirds and sea turtles. Environmentalists' legal challenges are likely to be fueled by the findings. The local organization Save RGV filed a lawsuit, and in May, the Sierra Club and the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe of Texas announced they were joining. The Texas General Land Office, its Commissioner George P. Bush, and Cameron County are named in the lawsuit, which was brought in October 2021, not SpaceX, for allowing the company to close the public beach for testing. Texas officials amended the state's Open Beaches Act to exempt counties used for spaceflight activities, as they courted SpaceX to build a spaceport in 2013. The environmental organization asserts that the amendment is unconstitutional under state law. The opposition is already having an impact as SpaceX lowers its goal for Texas. In September 2021, the company submitted to the FAA its most recent proposal for the Boca Chica facility. At the time, it declared plans to construct a power plant, gas processing plants, and water infrastructure to produce fresh water for the firefighting launchpad deluge systems. SpaceX may try to conduct launches offshore in the Gulf of Mexico in addition to the Florida launchpad. 2 SpaceX oil rigs, Phobos and Deimos, named after Mars' moons, are being transformed into Starship launch platforms in the Mississippi port of Pascagoula. The risky launch tests that Kennedy Space Center cannot support could be conducted on these platforms. Musk imagines the first permanent human migration to another planet, as 1,000 starships departing Earth every 2 years during Earth's close encounters with Mars. In order to truly settle the red planet at this cadence, Texas, Florida, offshore platforms, and other locations might be required. So that's all for today's video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to watch more videos like this one, then hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you will always be notified.